Tell me what's worse than learning all that you led to believe was all horse crap. They distort.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries, where we discuss Collision in Korea, the WCW New Japan Pro Wrestling Supercard, which took place in Pyongyang, North Korea. So, I'm going to assume everybody saw this, but I'm going to give some background for people who might not have. How did this whole thing come together? Well, Riki Dozan is known as the father of Puroresu, the father of Japanese pro wrestling. And he's one of the first big Asian pro wrestlers. Now, he's not Japanese, he's North Korean. And nobody knew he was North Korean. He was playing a Japanese wrestler. So he trained Antonio Inoki, who is, a huge star in Japan, one of the bigger Japanese wrestling stars. So Riki Dozan was killed in 1963. He was stabbed by a Japanese Yakuza member for reasons unknown in a bathroom while they had gotten into an argument. The guy served 7 years in prison, and recently, within the last 8 or 9 years, he died of diabetes. So the guy only served 7 years for a murder, right? And he was a gangster. So anyway, in honor of Riki Dozan, Antonio Inoki decided to start having trips to North Korea. Apparently in 1994, Antonio Inoki went to North Korea to pay homage to the birthplace of Riki Dozan. And while he was there, I guess he told some stories about it or whatever. And then he decided in 1995 to go back, but to do a wrestling show in North Korea. And he pitched this idea, I'm guessing, to the North Koreans, who are always looking for big time celebrities, because that's the only people they see in the United States are big celebrities. So according to Dark Side of the Ring, they wanted Michael Jackson and Muhammad Ali, people they seen on TV all the time. Well, they certainly weren't going to get Michael Jackson. So Antonio Inoki started doing the footwork on finding Muhammad Ali. This is where Eric Bischoff comes from. So Eric Bischoff has just taken over WCW, and in doing so, he reconnects WCW and New Japan with the talent exchanges. The Steiners and the Road Warriors and all those guys would go to Japan. Masahiro Chono and the Great Muta would work in WCW, and there was a good relationship there. And Antonio Inoki is the chairman and is running New Japan Pro Wrestling at this point. So he asks Eric Bischoff, hey, do you know how I can get in touch with Muhammad Ali? Because Muhammad Ali had just done some stuff with WCW. Bischoff puts him in touch with Muhammad Ali, and then Antonio Inoki's like, look, I'm about to do this big pro wrestling thing in New Japan, taking some New Japan guys over there. Why don't you take some WCW guys and come along? Come with. I'm pretty sure Antonio Inoki would never say something like that, but I'm just saying. I'm trying to dramatize this thing. Anyway, Bischoff is like, sure, do something that nobody's ever done before. He's like, sure. So he went to Big Fu Manchu, the Hulkster, and it's like, hey, we got this idea to run a show in Korea, North Korea to be precise. Hogan strokes his Fu Manchu. That doesn't work for me, brother. Then he goes to Ric Flair. Ric Flair's like, woo, haha, I like it. I love it. So Flair is the biggest name that's going to participate. Then Antonio Inoki is able to book Muhammad Ali. So you got Bischoff, Flair, Antonio Inoki, Muhammad Ali, and then Bischoff went and found some more wrestlers. I think Benoit was working there at the time, or he was working on New Japan. It was one of the two. Two Cold Scorpio, the Steiner brothers, both of them, and only Road Warrior Hawk, all went over to North Korea, and it became an isekai, where stranger in a strange land. We took all of these idiots, some of whom are just out of their minds, and dropped them in the middle of a communist country where everything is drab and uniform and everything is tightly controlled and everybody's watched, everybody's under surveillance all the time. And that's where we get with the collision in Korea. And the collision in Korea is not what makes it a great story and actually worthy of making a movie. Is not even the in-ring stuff, because the in-ring stuff seemed to go okay. Nobody's ever said anything crazy about the in-ring stuff, only that the crowd was a little bit confused about what they were looking at. You know, that they were kind of like, I don't, what is this? They were quiet. They were uninterested. But this was the largest audience in the history of pro wrestling. Somewhere is about 150,000, 170,000, 180,000 people for 2 nights. They ran back-to-back shows. And, Bischoff is like, hey, the government doesn't know I'm here. My bosses don't know I'm here. Nobody knows I'm here. So nobody knows that those guys are over there. The Japanese government, or Sonny Ono went to him. So I forgot about him. The Japanese government told the Japanese nationals not to go. Like, look, we can't. Sonny Ono says, like, oh, yeah, look, they told us we can't guarantee your safety. There is a long and bloody history between Japan and North Korea. We absolutely don't know what's going to happen. Don't do it. So the reason why Antonio Inoki was doing this whole ordeal, is because his popularity as a wrestler really helped his political career. So he ran for the Japanese Senate. He ended up winning. And due to disgrace, he had to resign. So now he's too old to wrestle, even though he was still wrestling. He was still active. But he had been booted out of the Japanese Senate. And now he's like, okay, I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to try to promote peace with North Korea. And he believed that he could do that through sports, through cultural exchange. That's what he believed. Now, the Dark Side of the Ring framed this as a high-risk act of political theater, which, and to some degree it is. Whenever you go to a country that is not very open, that is very closed, that you only hear negative things about, a communist country, which is very bizarre considering the kinds of people who are, especially this network, right? Like Vice is right here talking about how terrible communism is. And when you really think about it, like, how much of that stuff do they agree with? I don't want to get into that, but, like, how much communism do you really want? But anyway, the three main storytellers in the Dark Side of the Ring are Eric Bischoff, who wrote a book called Controversy Creates Cash, in which he wrote like a half chapter about this collision in Korea. Too Cold Scorpio, who got into a fight with Hawk from the Road Warriors and talked about almost killing him. Oh boy, that was an incredible story. And Scott Norton, who got detained in North Korea. Now, it's the Steiner brothers. I guess were not asked to participate, but I did read some articles in which they, talked about their experiences. And the Steiner brothers essentially were like, look, everything about it sucked, especially Scott. You know how Scott is, man. Scott is very negative. Scott has said everything sucked. Even the food sucked. And that, the only thing that was good was fruit. so, I mean, they didn't really have much to add. Sonny Ono added a little bit of color, with especially since he still had his badge from when he went to North Korea. That was pretty cool. Too Cold Scorpio had this tale of him and Hawk from the Road Warriors getting into a fight. Tremendous story. The story of Hawk getting into fights in the weirdest places, though, continues. I didn't know about this. I didn't know about him and Too Cold Scorpio getting into a fight on the bus. I didn't even know Too Cold Scorpio was there in North Korea. In any event, there's also stories of Hawk getting into fights with Randy Savage at like a concert. So Hawk is a pretty excitable guy. It didn't take much to throw him off. But apparently Scorpio got the better of him on that bus. And then Norton said, like, shit, the guy was on medication. He was taking like Hep C medicine. Well, I forget what it's called. I wrote it down. What did he call it? It was some kind of medicine. interferon for Hep C. He had like flu-like symptoms or whatever. And apparently they got into a fight because Too Cold Scorpio had heat with Ric Flair, and Ric Flair was riding with Hawk, and I think he called Ric Flair a pussy or something like that on the bus, and Hawk decided to get up and start trouble, and they was fighting, and Scorpio got the better of him on that occasion, and then Scorpio, probably tried to apologize later, and then Hawk sucker punched him, knocked his block off. They got separated again, and then Hawk is making shivs in the fucking hotel room with Chris Benoit. Could you imagine like Chris Benoit in 1994? And he's just sitting there watching this black dude scrape chopsticks across a windowsill in in North Korea, and he's talking about shivving and murdering a guy in in the middle of a foreign country, and a communist foreign country. Of course I didn't. It was crazy. Of course he didn't do it. But it was that's insanity. And what is it with WCW and guys pulling sharp objects on each other? Like how long? I wish I could remember the exact date of the Arn Anderson Sid Vicious scissors incident, because this couldn't be too far apart. Where you got guys stabbing each other with scissors over here. You got Sid trying to kill Brian Pillman with a squeegee over here. You got Too Cold Scorpio trying to stab somebody with some goddamn chopsticks over here. Like, what the fuck is going on in that WCW locker room? That everybody's trying to kill one another. Not fighting. Fighting, I mean, you get guys in the room, they're going to argue, fight. But for fuck's sake, they're trying to kill one another. Like, he's literally, it's like prison. And that's what it sounded like, though. Because once they went into the hotel, they pretty much was expected to stay in there under constant surveillance for 4 days. They had to be there for 4 days. They had gotten their passports taken, so that the North Koreans could control their movement, so they couldn't just leave. Their movements were tightly controlled. Anything that the North Koreans didn't particularly think was normal, they tried to shut it down immediately. Scott Norton was talking about playing pool, and he wanted to play pool, and it took forever to get pool balls because the bureaucracy of getting pool balls in a goddamn hotel lobby was, it took him forever to get them. And then when he mistakenly scratched the pool table and the ball went bouncing on the floor, the North Koreans got so angry they took the damn balls from him because they figured they were up to something. Eric Bischoff goes for a morning jog, and everybody acts like he's, Godzilla stomping through Tokyo, and because these people are so, it was like, I'm trying really hard not to just break out and start doing some nerd shit. But if y'all have ever seen the Macross, with the early episodes of Robotech, and they were talking about the Zentradies, or whatever the hell they were called, Zentradi tribes, the aliens. They were a warrior race with no concept of emotions and no concept of relationships. So they were grossed out by simple things like kissing. Like they would see two human beings kiss, and they'd be like, "Oh, what the hell? What is that? They're pressing their faces against each other. What is that?" And it was a hilarious thing in Robotech when the Zentradi had a baby, and and she raised the baby in the air, and they were like, "Oh!" It was horrified at the sight of a baby because they had never seen an actual baby before. They all clones, so they had never actually seen an actual baby before. That's kind of how I envisioned Eric Bischoff running through North Korea. Like most of these people have never seen an American before. And then he's doing something that's completely unusual to them because he's running for exercise. And they don't know what the hell he's running for. He's just running. And they're like, "Oh, what is going on? What is he doing?" Like, who is this guy? What is he doing? Like that's so strange. And like, we're hearing it from the side of the Americans and talking about how surreal it is. I really wish there was like a North Korean who had like escaped and could come and say, "Oh yeah, I was there in 1994. I was forced to sit in that crowd, here's what I was thinking when I saw, pro wrestling for the first time. That's the real story as far as I'm concerned. Like, we've heard about, Scott Norton had to say in Bischoff. Like, I'm really interested in with a North Korean sitting there for the first time and seeing Ric Flair for the first time. Him being one of the few Americans you've ever seen. Can you imagine, like, one of the few Americans you've ever seen is fucking Too Cold Scorpio? Goddamn Scott Norton? Ric fucking Flair in the sequins with bleach blonde hair, wooing and strutting, and I could not imagine that being my introduction to American culture. It's not really frightening because, like, I'm trying to put myself in that position but I've seen Ric Flair for 30 fucking years, so he's not that odd to me. And plus, like, if you see like regular music videos, but North Koreans don't see all that stuff. Like, they don't see like bleach blonde people. Like, they all wear either brown suits or gray suits. The buildings are all the same shape and the same size and the same color because that's how every communist country is like that, by the way. They all de-sex the women by either making them look just like the men. They make all the men look the same. They all look like clones. All the buildings look the same. If you listen, do any research on communist countries whatsoever, you can see that they really are big fans of uniformity. That's part of the equality concept, is uniformity in all things. So Mao, it was the same way. Stalin in Russia was the same way. And North Korea is the same way. And all three of them are totalitarian dictatorships, except for North Korea seems to have the succession of, if you're born into the family, you get the job. Where I don't think that was the case in China or Russia. But it's this weird place, and if you grew up in it, you probably don't know how horrible it is. You probably have to be like, this is normal. You only got 3 TV channels. All of them are government controlled. This is normal. People are watching everything that you say. What they call accountability culture, we call it cancel culture when people are watching everything that you say. And they say, well, that's normal. In China, they do it too. If you say something untoward about the government, somebody might come see you. Cuba, same thing. Hell, United States, same thing. You say something negative about the government, fucking Biden. Well, I'm not going to go that far. Let's chill. I'm not going to go that far. But, we see how, if you pay attention, how close the United States are getting to being like that. Like Scott Norton makes a phone call to his wife complaining about North Korea and how, he doesn't like this, he doesn't like that. They were spying on his phone calls. And then they cut the phone line, and then they beating at his door and tell him, like, you come with me. They go in and they interrogates the guy. They got him sitting in a chair under hot lights. This dude is like 350 pounds. Huge. In that room, quaking and sweating because he don't know what the hell is about to happen in this joint. And according to Sonny Ono, it was Anoki's people that got him out of there. Saved his goddamn life, probably. Because he was criticizing North Korea, and their interpreters picked it up. So I'm telling you, this should have been a cautionary tale for anybody who thinks that, oh yeah, it's, that kind of stuff is cool for people to be, eavesdropping on your conversation, or you're stealing your data, and just to get political for a little bit, even though I've done it quite a few times already. But if you think it's cool for like Facebook to give your data to the federal government, understand this is the kind of stuff that you're inviting into the country. When you start talking about, oh yeah, we want to have universal this or universal that, everybody needs to be the same. Then okay, is everybody gonna live in the same house? We're gonna build all the buildings the exact same way. Everybody's gonna wear the same clothes because some people might have better clothes than others, and that's the kind of situation that you get. You get these crazy communist countries, and most people. I've been reading a book. It's about Baumeister. It's called Evil. And it's about basically that most people who do evil things they don't see themselves as evil. They see it as part of, their everyday life, just things that they do, you know, quirks, personal quirks. I haven't finished the book. I'm going to definitely do something on it when I talk about it. But he talks about soldiers. Soldiers do very rude things like shoot down children. That to them, it's not really evil to shoot down a child because they've already been conditioned to shoot people and kill people as part of their job. So now when they're shooting children for sport and stuff like that, they're not looking at it like, they're not disconnecting the two, killing to save yourself versus killing for the sake of. They're not separating that. And if you are in a country like North Korea or a country that is so tightly controlled, then you just go along. You just go along with it. You don't need to exactly be a bad person. It's the same thing with Nazi Germany. You don't have to be a bad guy. All you have to do is just go along with it. Don't ruffle any feathers. Don't say anything. Don't disagree. Just go along with it. And then who the hell knows what they're going to have you doing if you just go along with it. That's the Borg mentality. And people say like, oh, it had nothing to do with me. It's not my personal behavior. And, but it is, like everybody's responsible for themselves. But when you think about that concept, that Borg behavior, and then you look at the fanciful thing they were able to do, as far as the collision in Korea was concerned, they was able to get those people to sit in those chairs and they didn't want to be there. Over 100,000 people, they was able to round them up and basically at the threat of gunfire, put them in the seats and force them to watch wrestling. Don't embarrass the country. So this was very good. Like I said, it could have easily been a movie. Collision in Korea is a very interesting story. I'm gonna close with this. Antonio Inoki did this again, by the way. He has done these shows in North Korea. He's been back and forth to North Korea at least 30 times in articles that I've seen looking up how many times did he do this. But he recently, I think in 2014, he took 3 more American wrestlers and they had a big show in North Korea. It was called the Pyongyang International Martial Arts and Wrestling Games, or Pro Wrestling and Martial Arts Games. John Anderson, Bob Sapp, and Eric Hammer were 3 guys that he took. And he only had 13,000 people. But this was part of Inoki's concept of peace through sports. He is still he was 71 when he did this. And that means he's about, 75, 76 today. And, he's still trying to mend those fences between Japan and North Korea. And I've heard a lot of horrible things about Antonio Inoki, and probably a lot of them are true, about how he used to abuse the young boys and beat the hell out of them, and stuff like that. And I have no reason to doubt any of that stuff because I've seen like the training methods in Japan. They had that Bushido stuff, and even Antonio Inoki talked about Ricky Dozan hitting him in the head with a wooden sword and busting his head open. Like, that's nuts. But if you look at like the Japanese training facilities, like you look at, there's a video of Tatsumi Fujinami training, Antonio Inoki training. It is torturous, like those are those sound like bad stories, right? Like there is bad things happening to young boys in Japan. Shinsuke Nakamura wrote in his book about being slapped by Antonio Inoki and how he was abusive to people who didn't do either as well as he wanted them to, especially when he was running the promotion as far as running New Japan. That because Nakamura was one of Inoki's, I guess you could say, proteges, and he really wanted him to do that, the Inokiism, the mixed martial arts and pro wrestling, which of course damaged a lot of careers. He fucked over a lot of careers with that stuff. And Nakamura, ended up getting slapped. And I'm pretty sure that wasn't the first time. And so for all the negativity that I've heard about Antonio Inoki, because, there's people who are looking to throw dirt on you at all times, this is some really fucking cool shit. Like it's weird. right? It's really weird that he would go back and forth to North Korea so many times, but it says something about the man's character that he is trying, you know, futile as it may be, to penetrate North Korea and to bring culture out from outside of that, from outside of what they're doing and what outside of their structure. He's trying to bring different things to their world, and new generations of North Koreans can see different things. And that's strong as far as I'm concerned, man. Because there's a lot of people who are scared. There's a lot of people who are scared of going and doing different things. And this guy, like, that's why I had that such reverence for when Dennis Rodman went. Like, it's not even about North Korea being awesome or anything. I don't even care about the politics of it because, our own government are a bunch of assholes. It's about the people having an opportunity of seeing things that they never got to see before. Being a part of something that can be special to them, even if it's scary to you. Like, that's why I say, like, I really trip on the importance of what would a North Korean think. It would have been nice if we could have got a North Korean in Dark Side of the Ring. So that we could, hey, I'm pretty sure that nobody who has ever set foot in one of these wrestling shows has ever escaped North Korea. But it would have been such a get. Like, of course, we can get the CNN correspondent to tell us about how terrible North Korea is. And I get that. We don't need propaganda on how bad North Korea is. We already know. It's no different than any other communist country. But, some communist countries they talk good about, like Cuba, right? You will see Vice talking about how great Cuba is or something like that. And it's like, what? These communists bad, these communists good. I don't understand that. But anyway, that would have been special, because this is a special occasion. This is something that we take for granted that other people don't ever get to see. And even if they don't appreciate it, it could be something that the spark that tells some other people, like, I want to do this, or I want to get out of here, or this is different. Like, what is going on here? It might be something they can remember because it's something that's so rare to them that they might cherish it. Could you imagine that somebody might actually cherish watching a wrestling show because they've never seen one before and they haven't seen one since? Imagine you can only watch one wrestling show. Whether the show was good or bad, you don't know. You've never seen it before. So you may walk away like, what in the hell? Those guys were huge. They were punching each other. They were dressed silly. What is that? What the hell was that? You might either be frightened as fuck. You might be laughing your ass off at how ridiculous it is. You might be laughing because you legitimately thought it was funny. You might have fucking enjoyed it. You might have went and told other people, like, yo, I went to this show. Huge white dudes punching each other. Huge black dude body slammed this other guy. It was crazy. And that's the kind of stuff that, that wrestling can bring to the world. I look, Inoki might be the villain that everybody says that he is. But on this issue, I give him a big thumbs up. It was risky. It was certainly risky. But he's trying to do something. He's trying to make the world at least somewhat safer for Japan, because North Korea and Japan are like right there next to each other, man. They've had history of going back and forth and killing one another. Got to give the guy credit for trying. Even if it doesn't work, got to give him credit for trying, because who else is going to try? North Korea ain't got nothing the Americans want, so we don't care about what's going on in North Korea. They don't sell us anything that we need. They don't make anything, so we don't care. But he's like, I want peace. We're right here next to each other, North Korea and Japan. He's doing a service, and it might not be appreciated. But, big ups to Antonio Inoki. Now, at the end of the episode, Eric Bischoff brags about having the biggest wrestling event of all time and saying that, you know, it blew WrestleMania out of the water and that he pretty sure that Vince is jealous. But then of course, he had to admit that, you know, everybody was forced to be there and there was no paying audience. And I guess I heard all the boys got paid their normal rates. So nobody got like hazard pay or anything like that for going to North Korea. Two Cold Scorpio was like, you know, I worked in twice the size of WrestleMania 6. You know, I did it twice, back-to-back nights. That's the only thing I got on Hogan, you know. And Scott Norton talked about how cool it was to perform in front of Muhammad Ali and to get compliments from him. And I was like, man, it was cool for them too to some degree, because you did get to be in the ring and see over 100,000 people, over 150,000 people watching you do what you do. They might have been standing like fucking zombies, but they were there, you know. so you know, but it's very interesting. This was a great story. But you know, let me know what you guys think. Like, share, subscribe, donate. Welcome. See you later, and I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.
Old non-aggression. Once that lesson sets in, you'll see a session, but you got an affection for no progression, regression.